For years, I had always valued my personal space, and after what felt like an eternity of scrimping and saving, I finally achieved a monumental milestone. I bought my very own two-bedroom apartment. It wasn't some fancy penthouse overlooking Central Park, mind you, but it was unequivocally mine. Just me, Evelyn Reed, a fiercely independent 28-year-old navigating the often turbulent waters of the marketing world. Growing up in the chaotic whirlwind of my parents' house with my younger brother Dylan, who was a full 4 years my junior, had instilled in me a deep craving for tranquility. Dylan had always been, to put it mildly, the problem child, perpetually shrouded in a protective bubble of parental coddling and endless excuses for his often questionable behavior. Therefore, the moment the shackles of adolescence were even remotely loosened, I bolted. I tirelessly worked my way through college, fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer determination, and meticulously built a life that was distinctly my own. The apartment renovation was a 3-month odyssey of paint swatches and cabinet decisions, every detail painstakingly chosen by me. From the serene pale blue that now graced the living room walls, to the sleek gray of the kitchen cabinets, and even the tiny balcony garden that held the promise of Saturday evening serenity. Ah, Saturday evenings. They were my sacrosanct ritual, just me, a generous pour of crisp Sauvignon Blanc, and whatever literary world had captured my imagination that week. Until one particular Saturday, the insistent shrill of the doorbell shattered my peaceful sanctuary. I wasn't expecting a soul. Peering through the peephole, my blood ran a little cold. It was Dylan, fidgeting from one foot to the other, a nervous tic I knew all too well. "Dylan, what in the world are you doing here?" I asked, the words laced with a wary apprehension as I unlatched the door, yet deliberately refrained from stepping aside to offer him entry. "Hey, Ev," he offered, his smile stretched a little too wide, a familiar mask. "Mom and Dad gave me your address." His gaze flickered past me, greedily taking in the sanctuary of my apartment. "Can I come in?" Reluctantly, a knot of foreboding tightening in my stomach, I yielded, watching him step inside, his eyes darting around, assessing every detail with what I now recognized with chilling clarity as calculation. "Nice place, really nice," he drawled, his hand casually sweeping across my brand new quartz countertops. "So, Dylan, what brings you here?" I asked, crossing my arms, a defensive posture. "So, I'm kind of in a situation," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze, a crimson flag of trouble. I foolishly chose to ignore. "I need a place to crash for a bit." What happened this time? I couldn't help the weary sigh that escaped my lips. This wasn't our first rodeo. Dylan's situations were as predictable as the changing seasons. "Things have been a little rough lately," he shrugged, a picture of feigned nonchalance. "Lost my job, landlord kicked me out." He punctuated this with a dismissive wave of his hand, as if such calamities were mere inconveniences that befell everyone. "Just need a month tops, I'll find a new gig, save up, and be out of your hair before you know it." Every fiber of my being screamed a resounding, "No!" Dylan's month-long stays invariably stretched into eons. His saving habits were non-existent, and his job tenure was shorter than a mayfly's lifespan. Yet, standing there in my meticulously curated living room, a wave of that insidious familial obligation washed over me, that guilt-ridden pull that had plagued me for years. "Where are your things?" I asked, my eyes noting the singular, pathetic-looking backpack slung over his shoulder. "That's the thing, my landlord, he, kept all my stuff. Back rent and all that jazz." "Jesus, Dylan. I know, but I've got some leads. Good ones, seriously. 30 days, Ev, that's all I'm asking." I expelled a long, drawn-out sigh, the taste of future regret already bitter on my tongue, but the thought of my own flesh and blood on the street, it chipped away at my resolve. "Fine, 1 month, the spare bedroom is yours, but there are rules." His face instantly brightened, a flash of that old manipulative charm. "You're the best, Ev. Seriously, you won't even know I'm here." 2 weeks crawled by, each day a testament to Dylan's remarkable talent for inertia. The job hunt consisted primarily of marathon video game sessions on his phone and endless hours glued to the television while I was out earning a living. I found myself inexplicably buying groceries for two, preparing meals for two, even shelling out for new clothes when he casually mentioned his limited wardrobe. Any luck with the job hunt? I ventured one evening as he voraciously attacked the pasta I had painstakingly prepared. Getting close on a couple of things, he mumbled between mouthfuls. There's this place downtown, pretty sure they're gonna call me any day now. I offered a curt nod, years of experience having inoculated me against his optimistic pronouncements, yet unwilling to ignite another fruitless argument. I had already twice pressed crumpled bills into his hand, feebly rationalizing it as helping him get to these phantom interviews. You know, you're incredibly lucky to have me as a sister, I said, the words laced with a weary half-joke. The luckiest, he readily agreed, reaching for another heaping serving. Mom and Dad always said you were the responsible one. A full month bled into Dylan's residency, marked by his increasing comfort and my dwindling patience. Then my boss, Ms. L. Albright, summoned me into her office, her expression serious. Evelyn, we need someone to head down to Atlanta for the week. The Johnson account needs some serious attention, and you're our best person for the job. I couldn't refuse such a significant opportunity, especially not with the added weight of supporting two on a single income. Dylan, I have to go to Atlanta for a week, I announced that evening, the news hanging heavy in the air. Business trip. Cool. I'll hold down the fort, he replied, his eyes never leaving the hypnotic glow of his phone screen. I'm serious, Dylan. No parties, no friends over. Keep the place clean and look for jobs. Real jobs. Got it, sis. Don't worry. This place will be exactly as you left it. Oh, the naivete of hope. I should have known better. I really should have. Returning from Atlanta, the exhaustion from a week of intense work clinging to me like a heavy cloak, an unsettling feeling permeated the apartment the moment I stepped across the threshold. There was nothing concrete I could immediately pinpoint. Just a subtle dissonance, a feeling that things were off. The throw pillows on the couch were slightly askew, and a faint acrid smell of cigarette smoke hung in the air, despite neither Dylan nor I being smokers. Hey, welcome back, Dylan called from the kitchen, his tone a little too cheerful. How was the trip? Fine, I replied, my eyes scanning the living room, a growing unease settling in my stomach. Did something happen while I was gone? Nah, nothing special, he answered a tad too quickly, his gaze skittering away from mine. Just chilled, applied for some jobs. Are you sure? The place feels different. Different how? He refused to meet my eyes. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was Mrs. Petrov, my sweet elderly neighbor. Good you're back. Your brother had quite the party all weekend. Heard guests toasting to Dylan's housewarming. Didn't know you were moving. My blood ran cold. Housewarming? I repeated, my voice dangerously low. Dylan, really? His face flushed a guilty crimson as he stammered. It wasn't a big party or anything, just a few friends. And you told them this was your apartment? I crossed my arms, watching him squirm under my icy stare. Well, he mumbled, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled hair. I might have, exaggerated a bit. I just told them Mom and Dad, gave me the place. I stared at him, the weight of his audacious lie crashing down upon me. He hadn't just invaded my space. He had brazenly claimed it as his own. The sheer entitlement was staggering. I can't believe you, I finally choked out, the words thick with disbelief and anger. You're lucky nothing's broken or missing, and believe me, every fiber of my being wants to call your little entourage and set the record straight. But I won't. Thanks, Ev, he mumbled, a flicker of genuine remorse, perhaps for the first time, crossing his features. It won't happen again. The following days brought an unexpected development. Miraculously, Dylan actually found a job, some entry-level position at a warehouse, far from glamorous, but he went. 5 days a week, he trudged out early and returned looking genuinely weary. Hey, Ev, he said one evening as we ate the dinner I had, yet again prepared. I know the month is up, but could I maybe stay a little longer, just a couple more months while I, save up? Rent is insane right now. I chewed slowly, the familiar push and pull of my conscience warring within me. On one hand, he was working, a monumental step. On the other, I had traversed this treacherous path before. 2 months, I stated firmly, my voice leaving no room for negotiation. And I want to see you actively saving money. Absolutely. He nodded eagerly, the relief palpable. You won't regret it. Life settled into a precarious routine. I continued to shoulder all the financial burdens. The bills, the groceries, the endless cycle of cooking. Dylan never offered a dime, but to his credit, he was quieter, kept his room relatively tidy, and refrained from turning my apartment into a revolving door for his questionable acquaintances. We mostly passed each other in the evenings, exchanging brief, perfunctory updates on our respective days. Mom called regularly, her voice dripping with saccharine approval. Evelyn, darling, I'm so incredibly proud of you for taking such good care of your brother, she'd gush. You're having such a positive influence on him. Dad echoed the sentiment. Scott's finally growing up, thanks to you, sweetheart. I wanted to scream that I wasn't Dylan's parent, that this belated sense of responsibility should have been instilled years ago, but instead, I offered a clipped, "He's doing well," and swiftly changed the subject. 2 months stretched into 3. I desperately clung to the illusion that Dylan was diligently saving, that his departure was imminent. The truth, however, was a bitter pill I was slowly forced to swallow. I had grown accustomed to his presence. When he wasn't causing chaos, he wasn't terrible company, and the apartment, once a sanctuary of solitude, now felt strangely hollow without his albeit disruptive presence. Then came the Tuesday that irrevocably shattered this fragile equilibrium. I worked late, the clock inching past 9 p.m., as I finally put the finishing touches on a crucial presentation. Arriving home, the living room was shrouded in darkness, but muffled voices drifted from Dylan's room. As I placed my keys on the entryway table, a girl emerged from his bedroom, clad in nothing but an oversized t-shirt, my brother's t-shirt. She froze, her eyes wide with startled confusion as she registered my presence. Dylan appeared behind her, equally dumbfounded. "Ev, you're home late," he stammered, as if this flimsy explanation somehow justified the scene unfolding before me. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm as I gestured towards the scantily clad girl, who was now frantically trying to tug the t-shirt lower. "This is Megan," Dylan announced, his arm possessively encircling her waist. "My girlfriend." Megan's gaze flickered between Dylan and me, a storm of bewilderment brewing in her eyes. "Who is she?" she demanded, pointing at me. "And why is she here?" Before Dylan could concoct another elaborate fabrication, I stepped forward, my voice sharp as shattered glass. "I'm Evelyn, the owner of this apartment." Megan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Owner? Dylan told me this was his place." "Dylan," I said through gritted teeth, every muscle in my body tense with fury. "A word. With me. Now." "Baby, don't freak out," Dylan said to Megan, his voice laced with a desperate plea. "I just exaggerated a little." "Exaggerated?" Megan's voice rose, laced with betrayal. "You told me your parents gave you this apartment." "Yeah, but..." Dylan's eyes darted between us, a trapped animal caught in its own snare. "Does it even matter? Do you only love me because of the apartment?" Megan's silence was deafening, the dawning realization of Dylan's deceit etched on her young face, a mirror of the countless times I had felt that same sting of disappointment. "What exactly is going on here, Dylan?" I demanded, my patience hanging by a thread. "How long has this been happening?" "We've been together for a few months," he mumbled, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Ev, I want Megan to live here too." A harsh, incredulous laugh escaped my lips. He couldn't be serious, but the desperate plea in his eyes confirmed his audacity. "You're out of your mind." "Please, Ev." Dylan actually dropped to his knees, grabbing my hands, his touch clammy and unwelcome. "You're my most beloved sister. I'd do anything for you." "I'm your only sister," I pointed out, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm desperate," he continued, his grip tightening. "Only you can help us." Megan stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'll follow all your rules, Evelyn. I'll even help cook for everyone." I looked at her, young, probably barely out of her teens, yet possessing a quiet resolve that Dylan sorely lacked. Maybe, just maybe, she could be a stabilizing influence. "Fine," I conceded, the word feeling foreign and foolish even as it left my lips. But the same rules apply, and I expect help around the house. To my utter astonishment, things actually improved with Megan's presence. She kept Dylan somewhat in check, diligently helped with cooking as promised, and even offered a genuine thank you for our unconventional living arrangement. They mostly kept to themselves, a quiet, almost invisible presence, and a sliver of hope began to flicker within me that this might actually work until they saved enough to find their own place. Then, the familiar summons from Ms. Albright's office shattered this fragile peace. "Evelyn, we're opening a new branch in California. We need someone on site for 6 months to get everything up and running. You're our top pick." 6 months in California, 6 months away from my apartment, and from Dylan and Megan inhabiting it. That night, I delivered the news over a tense, silent dinner. 6 months, Dylan repeated, his eyes widening slightly. "That's a huge opportunity, Ev." "It is," I agreed, my voice firm. "But I need to be absolutely clear about something. While I'm gone, no parties, no guests. Keep the place immaculate. And when I get back, you two need to have your own place. Understood?" "Absolutely," Dylan nodded with uncharacteristic seriousness. "We'll save up the whole time you're gone, promise," Megan added, her gaze sincere. Despite their assurances, a nagging unease persisted. 6 months was an eternity to entrust Dylan with anything, let alone my hard-earned home. "I'm serious," I reiterated, my voice laced with steel. "I've worked too damn hard for this." "We understand, Ev," Dylan said, his tone placating. "Trust me, it'll be exactly as you left it when you get back." The next day, a wave of apprehension washing over me, I called Mom. "Could you maybe check on them occasionally, just to make sure everything's okay?" "Of course, dear," she promised, her tone dismissive. "But Dylan's doing so well now, I'm sure there won't be any problems." I desperately wanted to believe her. I really did. California was breathtaking, a vibrant tapestry of sunshine and opportunity, but a persistent knot of worry about my apartment refused to unravel. I called Dylan weekly, and each time, his reassurances were smooth and unwavering. "Everything's totally fine, Ev. We're being super responsible," he'd say, sometimes even turning his phone camera to offer a fleeting glimpse of the apartment, always suspiciously tidy. Megan's even taken up deep cleaning on weekends. Maybe I had misjudged him. Maybe he had finally turned a corner. Mom's reassurances only reinforced this fragile hope. "I've stopped by a few times, sweetheart," she told me over the phone. "He's doing great, Evelyn. You should be so proud." 3 months into my assignment, a jarring call from my boss back at headquarters threw my carefully constructed equilibrium into chaos. "Evelyn, we need you in New York next week for some crucial meetings regarding the California branch. Can you make it?" "Of course," I replied instantly, my mind already racing, plotting logistics. New York was a direct flight and a quick detour home before heading back to the West Coast. The thought sparked a flicker of excitement. I decided against telling Dylan. Part of me wanted to witness the true state of my apartment firsthand, unvarnished by his carefully curated video calls. And a larger part of me relished the idea of a surprise. After the whirlwind of meetings in New York, I boarded a flight home, a nervous anticipation bubbling within me. It was around 3 p.m. when the familiar click of my key in the lock echoed through the silent hallway. Stepping inside, I froze. 2 complete strangers, men I had never laid eyes on before, were sprawled on my couch, bathed in the flickering light of my television screen, engrossed in a video game. They looked up, startled, their expressions mirroring my own shock.
"Who are you?" I demanded, my suitcase thudding to the floor. "What are you doing in my apartment?" The taller of the two stood up, his eyes narrowed defensively. "We rent here. Who are you?" "Rent?"
My voice cracked, a strangled squeak of disbelief. "This is my apartment. I own it." The 2 men exchanged bewildered glances. "We signed a lease with Dylan Williams," the taller one stated flatly. "He said he owned the place." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of betrayal. "Dylan is my brother. He doesn't own anything." "Let me see this lease." The shorter man disappeared into the back of the apartment, my guest room, and returned moments later with a crumpled stack of papers. My eyes scanned the document, the fraudulent details swimming before me, and a wave of nausea threatened to overwhelm me. Dylan had concocted fake leases, renting out both bedrooms for a staggering $700 each per month. The lease terms? 6 months, exactly the duration of my California assignment. A cold fury began to simmer beneath the initial shock. I fumbled for my phone, snapping pictures of the damning documents. I need you both to leave now. This is illegal. Dylan had absolutely no right to rent this apartment. Look, lady, we paid good money, the taller one argued, his voice laced with indignation. I brandished my phone again, my voice trembling with righteous anger. I have the deed to this apartment right here. I can call the police and show them. Your choice. They scrutinized the images on my phone, their expressions shifting from disbelief to dawning realization. The shorter one muttered a string of curses under his breath. That bastard scammed us. Well, we'll find him, the taller one added, already beginning to gather his belongings with a newfound urgency, and we'll get our damn money back. I'm so incredibly sorry this happened to you, I said. The words heartfelt. They weren't the enemy here, Dylan was. But I need my apartment back. Today. They were surprisingly understanding, their anger now directed squarely at Dylan. Within the hour, they had packed their meager belongings and departed, promising a reckoning with my deceitful brother. I almost felt a pang of sympathy for him. Almost. As soon as the door clicked shut behind them, I frantically called a locksmith. While I waited, I tried Dylan's number repeatedly, each unanswered ring a fresh wave of fury. No surprise there. He knew exactly what he had done. The locksmith arrived with commendable speed, and the metallic click of the new locks echoed the finality of my decision. I marched into Dylan's room, now eerily silent, and with a grim satisfaction packed all his and Megan's belongings into black garbage bags, their lives unceremoniously bundled and deposited in a heap outside my front door. Then I sank onto my living room couch, the silence amplifying the turmoil within me, and waited. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that they would return. The telltale fumbling at the new lock, followed by confused murmuring and insistent knocking, finally shattered the tense quiet around 10 o'clock p.m. Evelyn, open the door! Dylan's voice, laced with a mixture of anger and panic, carried through the solid wood. What the hell? Why are our things outside? I unlatched the door, but stood firmly in the doorway, blocking their entry. Why, Dylan, did you rent out my apartment? Megan stood behind him, her gaze fixed on the floor, a flicker of shame, at least, coloring her expression. It was just temporary, Dylan stammered, his eyes darting nervously. We needed some cash, and you weren't even using the place. I wasn't using it, I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. It's my home. I let you stay here out of the goodness of my heart, and this is how you repay me? We were going to put the money back. He tried, his voice laced with desperation. Once you return— Stop lying, Dylan, I cut him off, my voice sharp as a shard of glass. You've been collecting $1,400 a month for 3 months. That's $4,200. Where is it? He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. We had expenses. You stole from me, Dylan. You lied to me, to those guys, to everyone. Evelyn, please, he begged, his bravado crumbling. Let us in. We have nowhere to go. Not my problem anymore. I was surprised by the icy calm in my own voice. Take your things and leave. I'm not leaving, Dylan's voice hardened, a flash of his old defiance returning. This is my home too now. No, it's not, and if you don't leave, I will call the police and report you for illegally subletting property you don't own. I'll also report you to the tax authorities for the unreported income. Dylan's face contorted with rage. You're such a bitch, Evelyn, always thinking you're better than everyone. I'm better than someone who steals from his own sister, I retorted coolly. Now take your things and go. Megan tugged at Dylan's arm. Let's just go, Dylan, she whispered, her voice weary. It's not worth it. After more futile arguments and a barrage of insults hurled my way, they finally gathered their bags and retreated. I watched from the window as they crammed everything into Dylan's beat-up car and drove away, the taillights disappearing into the night. My body trembled with a mixture of exhaustion and a strange sense of liberation. Part of me felt a pang of guilt. I had just made my brother homeless, but a larger, more resolute part of me knew that I had been enabling his destructive behavior for far too long. As I was about to finally succumb to the exhaustion that had been dogging me, my phone rang, the shrill tone cutting through the silence. It was Mom. "Evelyn Marie Reed," she shrieked through the phone, her voice a weapon of pure fury. "What have you done to your brother?" Dylan called us in tears. "How could you throw him out like that?" "He has nowhere to go." I took a deep, steadying breath. "Did he happen to mention why I threw him out, Mom? Did he mention renting my apartment to complete strangers while I was 6 states away?" "He said there was some misunderstanding about some friends staying over." "Not friends, Mom. Paying tenants. Dylan was charging them $700 each per month to live in my apartment. He forged rental agreements. He committed fraud." A stunned silence hung in the air. Then her voice softened, a familiar note of justification creeping in. "Well, I'm sure he didn't mean any harm." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Of course not. Dylan never means any harm, does he? He just does whatever he damn well pleases and expects everyone else to clean up his messes." "He's your brother, Evelyn. Family takes care of family." "I have been taking care of him for months, Mom," I retorted, my voice rising. "Feeding him, housing him, buying him clothes, and he repaid me by stealing my home." "You always were the selfish one, Evelyn," she spat, the words hitting me with an unexpected force. A cruel echo of years of subtle favoritism. "You're trying to ruin his life." I ended the call, the click of the disconnect a small act of defiance. Too exhausted for further argument, I turned off my phone and retreated into the blessed oblivion of sleep. The next morning, a wave of weariness washing over me, I called in sick to work. The first order of business, damage control. I contacted a contractor, his grim assessment echoing my own sinking heart. Water damage in the bathroom, deep scratches marring the hardwood floors, gaping holes punched through 3 walls. "The carpet in the second bedroom needs replacing," he droned, his clipboard filled with the litany of destruction. "Kitchen cabinets are damaged, appliances mostly okay, but the dishwasher needs a major repair." "How much?" I asked, bracing myself for the inevitable blow. "Around $10,000 for everything. Could be more depending on what we find once we start." $10,000, money I certainly didn't have languishing in a savings account. I thanked him, the weight of his estimate pressing down on me, and after he left, I dialed my mother's number. When she didn't answer, I left a terse voicemail. "Mom, I had a contractor look at the apartment. The damage Dylan and his friends caused will cost $10,000 to fix. He has 1 week to pay me back. If he doesn't, I'm reporting him to the police and the tax authorities. I'm not joking." 3 days later, my parents stood on my doorstep, their faces etched with a mixture of worry and resentment. Dad's expression was grim, Mom's eyes red-rimmed and swollen. I stepped aside, a silent invitation to enter the wreckage of Dylan's occupation. Mom's gaze swept over the living room, taking in the telltale signs of neglect and abuse. "We brought this," Dad said, his voice flat, as he handed me a thick envelope. Inside, a cashier's check for $10,000. "We sold some stocks," Mom explained briefly, her tone devoid of emotion. "To cover the damage." "Dylan should be paying for this," I stated, the injustice of it burning in my gut. "He doesn't have the money," Dad replied, his voice leaving no room for argument. "I knew that was true," I retorted, the years of enabling flashing before my eyes. "Dylan never has money because he never faces the consequences. Someone always bails him out." "We're helping our son Evelyn," Mom snapped, her voice laced with a sharp defensiveness. "Something you clearly don't understand." "There's helping, Mom, and then there's enabling," I countered, my voice trembling slightly. Mom's face hardened, her eyes cold. "Well, you've made your position clear. I guess you're no longer part of this family." The words hit me like a physical blow, a stark, brutal severing. I looked at them, these people who had raised me, yet had never truly seen me, their focus perpetually fixed on Dylan, their excuses for his behavior endless. "I think you should go," I said quietly, the words heavy with a profound sadness. They left without another word, the $10,000 check lying on my counter, a tangible symbol of their skewed priorities. I considered tearing it up, a defiant act of self-preservation, but the pragmatist in me knew I desperately needed it for the repairs. Weeks bled into months, punctuated by a deafening silence from my family. I took some time off work, a necessary retreat to oversee the painstaking repairs to my ravaged apartment, slowly erasing the physical evidence of Dylan's betrayal. I tried to banish Mom's cruel words from my mind, but they lingered, a persistent ache in my heart. 2 months after my parents' visit, my phone rang. The unfamiliar number sparked a flicker of apprehension. It was Mrs. Callahan, my parents' next-door neighbor, a sweet elderly woman who had watched me grow up and with whom I had always maintained a warm connection. "Evelyn, dear, how are you?" Her familiar, comforting voice brought a small, hesitant smile to my face. "I'm doing okay, Mrs. Callahan. How are you?" "Oh, fine, dear, though I can't say the same for your parents these days, poor things." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Well, I hate to gossip, dear," she said, though we both knew a little neighborhood news was practically currency. "But that brother of yours and his girlfriend have been causing quite the commotion. Parties at all hours, strange people coming and going. Your father was outside yelling at Dylan just yesterday to turn down the music at 3 o'clock in the afternoon." "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that," I said, a genuine wave of concern washing over me. "There's more, dear," Mrs. Callahan continued, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "Your father asked my Harold, you remember Harold, he's a lawyer, about eviction procedures?" A sharp intake of breath. "They're trying to figure out how to legally evict their own son from their house. Can you imagine having to evict your own child?" A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. A grim satisfaction mingled with a profound sadness. "That must be incredibly hard for them," I murmured. "Your mother's a wreck over it, dear. I see her sitting alone in the garden sometimes, just staring off into space. I brought over a casserole last week, but I don't think they're eating much." After thanking Mrs. Callahan for her unexpected call and promising to visit her soon, I sank onto my newly repaired couch, the silence of my apartment a stark contrast to the turmoil she had described. A small, petty part of me felt a cold sense of vindication. "See?" I wanted to scream at my absent parents. "This is what happens when you enable him." But the dominant emotion was a weary sadness. They were in their 60s, a time for quiet enjoyment, yet they were still entangled in the web of Dylan's chaos. For a fleeting moment, I considered calling them, offering some semblance of support. But what could I possibly say? Dylan wouldn't listen to me, and my parents had made their allegiances painfully clear. This wasn't my battle anymore. The following weeks became a blur of work, a welcome distraction. I threw myself into projects, staying late at the office, finding a strange comfort in the demanding schedule. My apartment was quiet again, just me, exactly how I used to like it, or how I thought I liked it. Sometimes now, the silence felt too heavy. Then, one ordinary Sunday afternoon, the insistent buzz of my doorbell shattered the quiet. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a fleeting, irrational second, my heart leaped with a surge of anxiety. Was it Dylan again? I peered through the peephole. My mother stood there, alone, looking smaller and more fragile than I remembered. I opened the door but hesitated before offering an invitation. "Evelyn," she said, her voice softer than I had heard it in months. "You look well." "Thanks," I replied, my tone guarded. "What do you want?" She flinched at my directness. "Can I come in, please?" I hesitated for a long moment, the years of complicated history hanging between us, then reluctantly stepped aside. She sat on the very edge of my couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze darting around the meticulously restored living room. "We've filed for an eviction against Dylan," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The hearing is next week." I wasn't sure how to respond. "Mrs. Callahan mentioned you were considering it." "I should have listened to you sooner, Evelyn. she said simply, her eyes finally meeting mine, a flicker of raw regret in their depths. You were right about him. We sat in a heavy silence, years of tangled family dynamics hanging palpably in the air. I miss you, Evelyn, she finally confessed, her voice thick with unshed tears. We both do. I miss you too, Mom, I admitted, the long dormant ache in my heart resurfacing. Will you come over for dinner next week, after the hearing? A small hesitant smile touched her lips. I'd like that, Evelyn. After she left, I stood at my window, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape below, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the buildings. Dylan would have to navigate his own path now, without my constant intervention, without our parents' endless safety net. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a fragile seed of hope began to sprout within me. Sometimes, the people we love need to fall before they can finally learn to stand on their own. Valuable lesson. This story serves as a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between familial love and enabling behavior. While our instincts may be to protect and support our loved ones, especially family, there comes a point where our actions inadvertently hinder their growth and perpetuate negative patterns. Setting boundaries, though difficult, can ultimately be the most compassionate act, allowing individuals to face the consequences of their choices and fostering genuine self-reliance. It also highlights the importance of recognizing and valuing one's own well-being and personal boundaries, even within the context of family obligations. What are your thoughts on Evelyn's actions? Have you ever experienced a similar situation? Share your comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking stories.